matters. Let me see you move.
Love never felt so good. Can't I die if it ever could? Not like you. Oh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Local Matters, where living local never felt so good. I'm Dottie Rimpsey. You know, recently we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy. For most of us, it was a time to reflect upon his dream for America. It was a day off. But with the number of fatal shootings that has happened by young African American boys against other African American boys, there is no day off. And there are many who are well aware of it, and they're out there working hard every day hoping to save young African American boys from the many pitfalls that lie before them. But the real question is, can they save them from themselves? Over the next several weeks, I will be talking with young leaders in our community who are working directly with African American boys, hoping to change the trajectory of their lives. And when we come back, we will meet one of those young leaders. Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard to Local Matters, where living local, well, it never felt so good. You know, 2015 really was not a good year for Calhoun County in areas of homicide for the county, for Calhoun County. In fact, I want to bring up, to start our show right off today, I want to bring up a full screen and take a look at the number of people who lost their lives in 2015, fatal shootings, pretty much. But what's so striking about this full screen is that out of the 10, 7 of these homicides were committed by young African American boys. And most of the names up there are young African American boys. So that is the subject of this show today. It's not a good show. It's not something that we want to talk about, but it's something that we have to address. And so joining me today on the set of Local Matters to really talk about this very prevalent concern that we have in our county is a young man by the name of Reverend Phillip Keith. Thank you so much for coming aboard Local Matters.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's so good to have you. You know, Reverend Phillip Keith, I've been away from Anniston for many years and then returned about 2.5, almost 3 years ago. So I wasn't aware that you are a young man on the scene out here doing all of the work that you do. And I understand that you it's amazing that you're not on that list. It's amazing that you're not in jail, you're not on drugs, you're not out committing crimes. Tell us a little bit about your humble beginnings, Reverend Keith.
Well, one of the things that I talk to young males about is my background is I tell them I have strikes against me, and some of those strikes is I grew up in a single parent home. I grew up locally in public housing in Glen Addy from age kindergarten up through high school. I also grew up going to Anderson High with all the negative stereotype against that, but I tell them regardless of how many strikes you have against you, you can be and do anything you want to be, just like I did. And I went on to Jacksonville State, graduated with a bachelor's and a master's degree, but I tell them and stress to the young men that just like I made it, they can make it.
They can make it too. They can make it too. And you mentioned you came from a single family home. You mentioned public housing. You shared with me earlier was Glen Addy?
Glen Addy.
Glen Addy. And you went on to Jacksonville State University, got not only a bachelor's, but a master's. And so you're out here working with young men now directly. What a wonderful, wonderful example you are. You know, Reverend Phillip Keith, right now it's a big thing that's going on, this big mantra in the African American community. It's Black Lives Matter. I really want to ask you a question. To so many different people, Black Lives Matter could mean so many different things. Do you think that their lives matter, really matter to them?
Yes, I think their lives matter to them because a lot of young people do have goals and visions for themselves. Sometimes they need people to help push them to reach their goals. I tell the young people, you know, there are potential lawyers, doctors, and leaders of the city of Anniston as well as the state of Alabama. And one of the things I like doing is pushing them and helping them reach their full potential and letting them know that their lives do matter, Black lives do matter. So
And I'm glad you're saying that, because a lot of times, and I've heard this recently, because of the number of fatal shootings that took place in our community, young African American boys particularly high, people are saying, well, there's just nobody out here doing anything anymore. So that's why when I heard that, I kept saying, no, it's got to be. I know that there is. I know there are people out here that are working to make a difference in these people's and these young boys' lives. And you're one of those persons that you're doing it. You know, and another thing I wanted to stress, that you could be anywhere. You could be anywhere, but you're working with them right here because, as you mentioned, you have your education. You chose to stay here. You're working with also with Reverend Everett Kelly, I understand, at St. Mary's, and he chose you to be his young. Well, I wouldn't say young, but he chose you to be his pastor to work with the young. Tell me, what are some of the things that you do with these young men?
A lot of the things that I do with the young men is have a mentoring program where I bring in other male role models that work with them as well as I work with them myself. I'm a volunteer basketball coach. I'm a volunteer football coach. I also mentor in the Anniston school system at Anniston High School as well as Anniston Middle School. And when I work with them, I teach them social skills, communication skills, life skills, the skills and the tools that they're going to need to be successful in life.
When you are working with them, do you find that they are really engaged with you?
Yes, I feel that they're really engaged and they want to be successful in life. They just need the tools to help equip them and prepare them to be successful in life.
Here's my real question I have for you. Out of the young men that we lost last year, and you don't have to name names, were any of these young men, did you work with any of those young men that we lost last year?
Yes, I coached one of the young men that lost their lives. I coached one of them in basketball. It did devastate me, but it also motivated me that in life, in Army, in the military, you're gonna have some casualties. You're not gonna win them all, but the ones you do are gonna be success stories. So that motivated me to continue to try to win people over and help them be successful in life, just like somebody helped me along the way to be successful in life. So it brings joy to give back to the community in which I grew up in.
When we come back, we're going to talk more about this very prevalent issue that has taken place in our community. I'm here with Reverend Phillip Keith. He is just one leader that is working to do everything he can to make sure that those numbers, we can't continue with numbers like that. So when we come back, we're going to hear from some of these young men who work alongside Reverend Phillip Keith. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard to Local Matters, where living local never felt so good. I'm Dottie Rimsey, and I'm joined with a young preacher here, Pastor Reverend Phillip Keith. You are the youth pastor at St. Mary's. Is it St. Mary's Missionary Church?
St. Mary Missionary Baptist Church.
Baptist Church in Lincoln, Alabama. And the topic of our show today has not been a good one. We've been talking about the number of homicides that have taken place in Calhoun County in 2015, 10. Can I bring up Jason, can I bring up that full screen one more time? I want to take a look at those names again of the people and young people who lost their lives in 2015. This is way too many young people. Not all 10 were young African American boys, but here's the thing. Out of the 10, 7 were much too high. Reverend Phillip Keith, what you're doing is we need it. Dr. King once said, that the time to do, I want to bring that graphic up, the time that is right. The time is always right to do what is right. It's always right to do what is right. And what you're doing, you gotta know is right with this number of homicides in Calhoun County. Do these young men, you mentioned to me earlier, and I thought that was, I was shocked. And I remember asking them that same question. Are they fearful? And they told me no. Why do Why would they say no?
Some of the young males that I work with, they don't have any fear in them, is because they're used to the environments that they stay in, and so they so used to violence, they so used to domestic violence, they so used to gun violence, they so used to all that violence, so that violence become a part of them, and it's a part of their environment.
That makes sense. That makes sense now. And I know this was so long ago, people would say, well, Daddy, girl, you're old. No, when we were coming up, if you just heard somebody was going to get beat up after school, and from what I'm told, the young men share with me too, that generally, this is the sad part, that most of the time, it's kind of out among the neighborhood that people know when somebody's going to get shot. When I was coming up, if there was going to be a fight at school, yeah, it circulated around the school. People would say, girl, yeah, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight after school. And that was a big thing. And if someone got beaten up, it was like, oh my God, he was almost beaten to death. But now, I guess if you're beaten up, I guess it's be like, wow, well, at least they didn't kill him. Because you say that's what they are accustomed to.
That's part of their normal everyday life, violence. And then again, they're so used to it, then it becomes a part of them. And that's one of the cycles we got to break as far as with our young people, as well as our older people in the black community, that it's not normal for violence to be there. And so that's why we got to help change their mindset. And once we do that, then we can have better communities.
And even though you mentioned it, they're accustomed to it, they don't fear it, but yet I talked with 4 young men that work directly with you almost on a daily basis, and I want people to hear that these young men, they do understand that there's trouble, but yet for right now they want to live. And what was sad though, they told me, I want to live, but I want to get out of here. Let's take a listen to what some of them had to say.
Well, I see myself in 10 years as either the Army or playing football or either married or something.
I really see myself in 10 years being settled down in my life, being married. To me, I like rapping, so I like to express my feelings from rapping. So I express how I live, what I go through and everything, just to teach folks a lesson.
I see myself in 10 years in the military, probably somewhere near halfway going into my 20 years before I retire from the military.
Well, in 10 years, I would see myself being a music producer because I like everybody who started from the bottom.
Wow. So each one of them, they and I was amazed that 2 of them, I think, said they wanted to be married. They want to have a family. The one young kid that you worked with that lost his life last year, did he ever talk about anything like these young men? Did he ever talk to you about, I want to leave here, I want to go in the Army, I want to go to college? Did he ever talk like that?
He had goals and he had visions, and he talked about family, and he talked about as well as being successful in life.
What do you think he went wrong? Because I'm going to share with you in a minute what they told me. What do you think he went wrong?
A lot of times the young people that I work with, a lot of times they hang around the wrong crowds, and sometimes they want to fit in, and so that's why it's important for us to teach them in the community it's important who you hang around with. It's important that you do the right things. It's important that you make the right decision and the right choices in life. So that's what we challenge them to do, and that's what they need to do in order to be successful, is hang around the right people.
It's funny you mentioned that you challenge them to say, choose your friends wisely. I want to bring up another soundbite from one of the same young men that we heard from earlier. This is what he had to say to his own peers.
What are you doing to make yourself better? What you doing in school? Are you constantly being the class clown in your class? Are you constantly giving your teachers problems? Because why you doing this now while you're in high school or elementary school? But you saying you want to do better, you got to start somewhere.
So already he's saying that do something. You can't keep blaming other people. We have got to do something. We have got to do something. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about the number of homicides that have taken place, particularly in the African American community with our boys. We've got to be we've got to show so much more support, love, and really be there for our African and young boys. So we'll be back with more on this conversation when we come right back. Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard to Local Matters, where living local never felt so good. I'm Dottie Rimsey, and I'm joined with Reverend Phillip Keith here with me on the set of Local Matters today. He's been with me all morning long, and we've been talking about the number of homicides that took place in Calhoun County year 2015. 10 too many, because not only do Black lives matter, all lives matter, but we wanted to have this show to talk about the number of homicides that did take place in Calhoun County that were committed by young African American boys against other young African American boys. And and for me, it's just, I just can't understand the entire concept of that. And what's amazing is that in a negative way is that when I talk with the young men that you work with, some of the young men that you work with on a daily basis, they shared with me that some of the reasons these young people lost their lives were over very simple things. Perhaps you disrespected me. Maybe you were dating my girl. I don't like the way you looked at me. Simple things. So you disrespected me, I'm gonna run home, get a gun, come back, shoot and kill you. And that's another whole topic of conversation. I'll have to have another show about that, which is very hot right now in the country, gun control. Because here's the thing, do you know where these young people are even getting guns from? Are they just lying around the house? Just lying there for them to just get? What?
A lot of the young people are buying guns from the streets, or they're stealing guns. It's a lot of different places, where they're getting the guns.
Here in Calhoun County?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, I know it's, like I say, that's a hot topic right now, gun control, but in this sense, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand we've got to do more to keep guns out of. Here's a young people that many of them probably didn't even have a license, but yet they could go somewhere and get a gun from somewhere. And we don't even know, I don't, because I don't work in law enforcement, and these kids are coming from single parent homes. They're coming from very humble beginnings. So how could you even afford a gun? The parents even afford a gun?
And a lot of times they get guns from other people on the streets, and the people give them the guns and they consider that showing them love, and so they get the guns from the people. And a lot of times I try to teach the young people that I work with is to make positive decisions instead of negative decisions. And a lot of times the young guys that are making those mistakes, they're not thinking before they react. They react and then they think, and when they think, then it's too late. So I try to push to them, think before you react, and then make positive decisions, and then everything will be fine.
You mentioned you working with these young men, and these men came out of homes just like the same type of homes you came out of. For those of you who joined us late into the show, Reverend Phillip Keith was not born with a silver spoon out of his mouth, but yet he's doing quite well in life. Jack State graduate with a master's, but you came from a single family home, came out of, you mentioned, was it Glen Addy?
Glen Addy. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned a few minutes ago that they were looking for love. Are they looking for love that bad? That all it takes is a stranger to say, "Here, man, here's a gun. You all right? I love you."
Yes, a lot of them are looking for love in the wrong places. That's why it's very important for role models to show young men that they can be successful in life, and show them as men you still can show love, because that's what is important, showing love and not hatred. That's one of the things we teach them in the life skills and the social skills, that it's very important to show love and exhibit the same love that Christ showed.
It really is. You know what? And we live in such a society right now, this reality type of world, where these reality shows where nothing but a bunch of violence takes place, and it's almost like we are in a society that sort of glorifies violence, delivering hate. And you're right. Love needs to be shown. That these young kids would take a gun, don't ask no questions where it's coming from, realizing that obviously I shouldn't have it, but I'm going to take it. And the minute I get mad, I'm going to run home and I'm going to get it, and I'm going to shoot somebody and kill them because they simply disrespected me. You mentioned that these, again, earlier, they're coming from single-family homes. What happened to our village? Before we even talk about the village, I wanted to bring up another graphic I found because, again, we want to pay homage to Dr. Martin Luther King, who we just celebrated the holiday just a few days ago. And the first question which the priest and Levi asked, and you know this all too well, Reverend Phillip Keith, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But the Good Samaritan reversed the question and said, if I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? Do we have enough Good Samaritans in our community anymore?
I think we have, a good number of Good Samaritans, but we always need some more soldiers and Good Samaritans to work with our young people in our community because it's very important that the church, as well as the school, the parents, and the community work together to be that village for the kids. I'm always reminded of an old story which my football coach used to tell us, together we stand, divided we fall, all for one and one for all. That means it's about us together as a team unit, working together to make a difference and an impact in a child's life, and pushing that child to their full potential, help them reach their full potential, and whatever goals they have in life, help them try to achieve those goals.
I really like that. You sound so inspiring. You're making me feel inspired. You know what? We've got to have a village. We've got to be more of a village. My dad used to always tell me growing up, it's not where you live, but it's how you live. So it doesn't matter whether you came out of Glen Addy, Cooper Homes, Norwood, what. Keep the vision alive. We need more villagers. We need more villagers. We'll be back with more Local Matters. In fact, we'll be back next week with more Local Matters.